If you look in the background, you see like one of the dog back there, whatever. So
Mm.
warriordog.com, I've been building a thing for the Warrior Dog Foundation, tying these
I thought you
RFIDs.
said voyeur dog, like
No,
some sort of
warrior.
kinky thing.
WARRIOR. Yeah.
You lost me. Never mind.
So just quick sales pitch.
Mm.
Until recently, military working dogs used to be euthanized when they would be retired because they were classified as equipment. And so they were a liability to
Oh.
the State Department. And then Robbie's law was enacted, which allowed them to be adopted by the handlers when they were processed out. Still, a lot of them were euthanized. And then some of these nonprofit organizations like the Warrior Dog Foundation stood up to try to find homes for them, or if they couldn't, they would house them and give them the retirement that they deserve, being that they serve their country. It's just they're not pets. Most people think of animal rescues as just being these, animals living on couches and stuff like that, and trying to place them. You can't really do that with a dog that spent its life doing
beating up Iraqi dog.
agitation work, we'll say. And so what I was like, okay, I'm trying to build a more meaningful relationship between brands and creators and viewers and consumers. And so again, the NFT thing, a lot of people will cringe, but a non-fungible token, all it is a unique identifier. It's like the IMEI or the UUID in your phone. It's there's no other like this one, right? And so what I did was I tied these to RFIDs in the collars of the dogs, and I put security cameras or surveillance cameras all throughout the facility, inside the kennels, where they eat, where they sleep, in the yard where they play, where they get bathed, and everything else. And as the dogs walk to different areas within the facility, it triggers an event. So when you donate or sponsor a dog, you get one dog, their entire feed, or you can sponsor 3 dogs or all the dogs. And instead of just, St. Jude, nothing against the organization, they do fantastic work, but you typically get like a card at around Christmas time saying, hey, please donate. At least this way you're able to see transparently a little bit more of where your dollars are kind of going to, and it builds a more meaningful relationship between you and the organization. And so once I ship this beta, probably in the next couple of weeks, I'll open it up to the public. Then I'm going to move on to a chicken farm. And then, and so all the chickens will have RFIDs on their legs. And so as they go in their nesting boxes, you'll get your carton of eggs. You'll be able to see that chicken free ranging throughout the day. Same thing with the cows at Kansas City Cattle Company. You'll be able to see the calving process all the way to the slaughter process. And so for me, food waste is a big, it's a big problem in the U.S. There's more than half of the food goes to waste. And so this is meant to give a more visceral kind of meaningful relationship, knowing that, some people might be more reluctant to throw out, waste some of their steak if they're able to see the lights go out on it.
Okay. You were telling us about the warrior dogs, and you said that they're not pets. My dumbass is like, no. If you shower a dog with love, it becomes a pet. That's like what happens to them. No. Tell me why that's not the case.
So you got to think that, these animals, when people hear PTSD, there's a stigma associated with that. And, David Morrell kind of shed a lot of light on that with, First Blood and everything. And now the stigma's kind of gone away a little bit, but people, when they think about dogs, they don't really think about the trauma that's associated with, their deployments and everything else. Not to mention their sole role. Well, not all of them. I need to kind of differentiate between the different mission sets that the different dogs would have. Some of them are agitation work or bite work, and some of them are detection. The detection dogs should be relatively easy to place in a home because they don't have the tendencies that the more aggressive dogs would. And
they might rat you out for your weed, though. You got to be careful about that.
That's true. It's true.
Narc dog, get
stop
out of my
sitting next to that lamp.
But it's funny, like, because so when I was installing these into the facility, and the average person might see the facility and see it and say, "Hey, look, like they're in concrete kennels and chain link and everything else. It's like, well, it's to protect the dogs. I'm like, what? Get the fuck out! No, it's like a prison or whatever. No, like legit, like installing the cameras in there, I had to put them in steel pipes and cut holes into the steel pipes so that I could sleeve and protect the camera. Within the first, I'd say 20 seconds of the dog coming back into the kennel, it completely destroyed the camera because it was in its space. And it's the same thing with, people. Is you introduce a dog into a home, there's a learning curve. Almost every handler has been bitten by their dog. And so the thing is if you introduce a retired dog into a home with kids, or a neighbor comes over, you really have to have the proper training or the right environment for the dog to be safe, and the people who are around it, because again, they're very protective. It's not like they're gangbangers just running around biting people and everything, but they do serve a purpose, and those things are they're just not suitable for the average
What's
family.
the percentage of these dogs that did agitation work, which means biting people for a living, I guess?
Yes. So there's different, there's different certifications. You'll hear the term like dual cert, or dual certified, that they may be able to do multiple things, but I would say it really depends on the branch of service. Most of the dogs coming through did agitation work because they're the ones that are hard to place. The detection dogs are relatively easy because like it's not like smelling RDX is going to trigger a dog to go off.
Did they
and
use
bite
Belgian
somebody.
mouse for that? Because when I went
to
that training school I went to, where we did like a documentary type video with them, and then that's where I got Dak at. Like his detection dogs, both explosive and like narcotics, were mostly labs. He had
floppy ears.
Like they looked like good boys. You know what I mean? Like sweet as fuck. And then all of the other dogs,
pointy ears,
bite work dogs, were pointy eared Belgian Mals and German Shepherds and
Dutch.
I'm surprised they don't make a hybrid of the Mal and the Shepherd to get a little bit of the best of both worlds, maybe.
Well, I mean, that's kind of like a Dutch Shepherd, right?
Is it? I'm not familiar with the Dutch Shepherd.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really a hybrid of the two. I mean, the Mal is kind of its own thing, but they're
sort of fits that role.
Those are the three primary, I would say, is Dutch, Belgian, and German. But yeah, so and that, I don't want to speak out of turn here because I'm the tech guy building out the infrastructure, the servers, and all this other stuff. I'm not an ambassador for the organization. I'm just trying to help them build a more meaningful relationship between the sponsors and everything. But it's really exciting. Well,
that's good. That's a good cause. I'll tell you, like, I care about animals more than people, if I'm being honest. I remember when the Ukraine war kicked off, I wasn't about to frankly send money or like help them buy their drones. It's like the State Department and you have a deal already. You don't need me to slide around them. They'll give you all the drones you need. I'm not sending you $500 for drones. But then I heard there was a charity for like fucking dogs that had been abandoned or something. I was like, all right.
Yeah.
All right.
It's hard. Like, I feel like I'm getting emotional now, but it is so, because when you really hear, and that's one of the reasons why I've shifted work into these things, because this is kind of like my charitable focus, I guess you could say, is so Robbie's Law was enacted right around the start of the GWAT. And so every deployment beforehand, or every conflict beforehand, specifically Vietnam, all those dogs were euthanized or left there. And it's kind of crazy when you think about it, because if you know anybody who served and they had a dog in their unit or in their group, it was like, that's the thing that everybody looked fondly about. Like it just brought a level of home to being deployed, that
it's a team mascot too. And I'm sure like having a dog would have probably saved our lives. If
I was just gonna say that that's the other thing too, is like especially if you have a detection dog or man,
the first dog that like stops
IEDs.
you from stepping on a tripwire and like alerts to like a guy in a fucking tree with an SKS or something. You're like, oh my God, who's a good boy?
So it kind of breaks your heart to think that
For
you
sure.
know that dog would be just put down because it was classified like an M16.
You
And
would think police departments like
so
why not
that
But they're
funnel them
old,
there?
right?
that
So
was
there's a
that
reason.
was the path for a lot of dogs in that transitional phase where because so here's the other thing people don't think about is like the Belgian Malinois were very, I don't want to say regulated, it was just there wasn't enough breeders out there. So when that transition happened from German Shepherds to Belgian Malinois, the DOD became one of the largest procurers of Belgian Malinois. So you couldn't even really buy one because they were buying them all up. They even started a breeding program at Lackland.
Yeah, you don't want to fuck up your government contract. Somebody's like, can
Yeah.
I have a puppy too? No.
Yeah, and that drove up the price of them too, right?
Yeah.
So like, you try to buy from a reputable breeder, you're going to pay a lot of money, and so you have all these weird nuances in this process. But yeah, man, it's really kind of, you know, it's frustrating to hear that, you know, most people didn't even realize that was happening. So
Yeah, I'm glad that they're doing that. That's a tremendous cause because as much as you know, I love all dogs, but man, those are the best boys. Those are
let me tell you a story about
dogs. Remember the dogs Trump talked about? Those dogs probably got euthanized.
Let me tell you a story about one. So, one of the dogs, I think it's Chucky. There's police service dogs that come into the program too, right? So there's been enough time that the organization's been around. They're like, give us any dog. Like if an organization has a working dog and it's going to be euthanized, give it to us. Like let us at least be the last shot that this dog has, because the way we and everyone sees is like these dogs have served their countries like faithfully. They need a shot at retirement, not euthanization. So so Chucky, it was a great example where I think they sent him. I may be speaking out of turn here, but they sent Chucky. There was like a suspect that was inside the attic of this huge building. So the handler takes him up, and again, he's a police service dog. He goes up into the attic and gets a bite on this dog. And as the handler is trying to get to him, he falls through the roof, and I think it's like 2-3 stories down. Knocks the guy unconscious. And so they have to wait for a separate team to get there, the medics and everything else. He gets sent to the hospital and everything. The dog stays on the bite the entire time. Jesus Christ. And so
get him off me.
So it took another handler, and so I think he was awarded at least one medal for that. And there were like a number of different things, but all these dogs have just remarkable stories. It's like it's truly humbling to be able.
I have a silly question.
Yeah,
I suppose it's silly. Don't you think you could take one, like in a one-on-one unarmed fight? Don't you think you could take one Mal? He's gonna bite your forearm, and then you get to do whatever you want. You can get on. You get position.
Yeah, you can scream.
Get on top.
You can cry.
Come on. He doesn't. It's not a bear. He's not gonna snap my arm. He's gonna latch on and start shaking and tearing. But I've got him right here now. He's wherever I want him.
Kyle controls that mouth with his forearm.
And there's not a bunch of like valuable
my forearm, not my throat, not my femoral artery, not my dick, not my intestines. I got him.
I'm actually with you, Kyle, because
where I
sometimes
want him, frankly.
We've had this argument before, but it's an eagle, and everyone's like, "Look at those talons! Like how dangerous they are." Sure, but I don't think they can deliver lethal blows to me.
He needs a knockout blow.
All right,
I'll agree.
I'll give you my opinion and then a story. So my opinion is yes, I agree, but like the few times that we've messed around with explosives, we've had some shady scenarios before with we'll say some improvised electronic blasting caps that have been very high tension, and few things get me as terrified as seeing a Mal waiting to be released with an erection drooling out the mouth and knowing that it's about to come bite me. It is one of the most
Yeah,
terrifying.
They're erect.
You know, you're fucking right.
Yeah,
You're fucking right.
So I agree. Feed it an arm, and then just punch the shit out of it if you can. But the story I'm going to tell you is like, so they rebooted the program, the military working dog program at Camp Pendleton, early 2000s. Again, started the GWAT, and they hadn't had time to retrofit everything from the Vietnam era, and so a lot of the kennels didn't have working air conditions and stuff like that they were going out into the desert. Very problematic. But the media day was around, and one of my buddies, Mike Dowling, who wrote the book Sergeant Rex, is kind of funny. He was talking about how they brought their hardest hitting German Shepherd out there for media day, and so they put the journalist in a bite suit, and he has,
describe the journalist physique for us, if you will.
I don't even know. We'll say typical Southern Californian male.
Gonna be punished for his fake news.
And so he goes, and they release the dog on him, and they send it. And whenever he feeds him his arm, he bites down on it and snaps it in half, compound fracture inside the sleeve. And from that day on, the Marine Corps, and it may even be like a military wide thing now at this point, but no more civilians in bite sleeves for any kind of government working dog.
Is this like a uniquely small man? Like,
no. And that was the thing, is like he looked badass on camera.
In his big muscle suit.
Yeah. Well, no, the dog. The dog. It's like, this is America's, like, Marine Corps working dogs. And so
it snapped some journalist's arm.
So now what they do is they take and put the boot guys and the lower ranking new guys in the program in the bite suits to demo whenever the media comes out and everything. But I just thought that was kind of cool. But when you get
you've been in one too, right?
Yeah, it's not my thing.
It was so tiring. For one thing, I was in poor shape when I did it, but it was a pretty large German Shepherd, and it was like his German Shepherd, like the guy who owned the school and the whole place. This is like Buck, his boy. This is the dog that would go fetch Miller Lights out of the fridge and close the fridge and shit. And that dog was whooping my ass. However, like, again, once he had my arm, I felt like, man, I feel like maybe I put my whole body weight on your chest, and like I can start doing shit to you. He's gonna fuck your arm up 100%. But after wrestling with him for what felt like an hour, but was probably 10 minutes, I was 100% exhausted. And at that point, if the fight had actually been going like it was, he would have killed me. Like, I was also in the suit. You're overheated, and it was a hot day. We were indoors, but AC was only doing so much, and like I was overheated and exhausted to the point, and he was still going. Like he wanted more. If he
wasn't wearing a suit, not fair.
He's had fur coat on.
I'm just trying to help. I don't know, man.
He wears it every day. He's like One Punch Man with that shit. Like, he showed up like that.
He sleeps with no air conditioning.
Dak bit me one time, but I'm sure he was only like, hey, last fucking warning kind of bite, because he grabbed my whole calf in his mouth and bit it hard enough.
Why?
Kitty had him outside and like walking him off leash, and I didn't know that. And I sort of walked up on them like on my phone, and they didn't catch me. And there was this moment of like, oh, you're here, which is normal between human beings. But when he was there, it was like, you're here. And he ran up and fucking grabbed my, he like barked 3 times. I froze. I figured like moving at all was a bad move, because I can't outrun him, and I don't think I can cower him either. So I freeze, and he sort of roof, 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 and then bites my whole fucking calf and goes arr, arr, and like lets go. And I'm just like, I just went from the pain, because I didn't want to yell too loud either. Maybe that'll encourage him. And then she like got him away from me, and it was all good. But
I never got your relationship with him, because it felt like you were never his handler. It's like he always hated you.
Yeah. So what happened was, right when I got him, I took him for a walk, And like we didn't know each other very well, and he was already skittish to begin with, very skittish. And I had just gotten a samurai sword, and so I'm checking my mail.
Of course you did.
I got my samurai sword in one hand. I got my fucking Belgian Maltac dog in the other, and I'm checking the mail. And I'm probably thinking how cool I am. And there's a fucking like weed growing next to my mailbox, and I'm like, not today, sha. And I fucking slice, and just the arm movement spooked him so much that he freaked out. I put the thing on the ground. Now I got both hands on the lead, and he tore his way out of a full chest harness. Like he wiggled enough and twisted enough that he got out and disappeared for like 48 hours. Had to like track him down. I lived on the lake, and he's all these fucking wooded hardwood hills between like houses, and I'm driving around the roads screaming at him, Dak, and he'd stop and look at me like a deer. Like we don't know each other very well at this point. And then he'd run again. And so that was definitely like a problem with our relationship right away. And then I was on the road at one point for like 2 months because I had like back to back engagements. It was like Chicago, maybe like Boston, Chicago, Seattle, LA. And like they happened in such a way that I just wasn't at home. And he bonded with her because she's in her office. And so it became her dog.
He reverse bonded with you. He hated you.
He reverse bonded, and he saw me as like an intruder. I was home so little that I was like, you don't belong here. What the fuck you doing here? So it became a thing where like I couldn't. It's weird. Like if I was sitting on the couch and he came out, and then he would sit on the couch with me and we'd be chill. But if it was vice versa, that would be a big problem. Like if he'd been on the couch and I tried to join him, I wouldn't have made it to the couch before he started like alerting and standing his ground. But he was a bad motherfucker. He died recently.
Old age or what?
Yeah, old age, yeah.
Kyle killed him.
My bear, at 15, I was finally strong enough to like choke the life out of him. It was maybe not 15. He was
no, but still, like I can't, like we're old.
Oh yeah, I mean close to 15.
When my dog doesn't recognize me in the yard and starts barking, you know, he sounds really scary. It's a Great Dane. And I'm like, you're 96 years old. What do you get a limp over here?
Yeah.
Cut me a break.
I got
what he should be doing is debating in front of the country.
Well,